Hello, and welcome back to Bible Wits Bible Corner. Today we're going to continue in Joshua chapter 8. I'm going to read verses 22 through 28, starting with the English Standard Version. And the others came out from the city against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some of this side, or some on this side and some on that side, and Israel struck them down until there was left none that survived or escaped. But the king of Ai they took alive and brought him near to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the open wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them to the very last had fallen by the edge of the sword, and Israel returned to Ai and struck it down with the edge of the sword, and all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. But Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had devoted all of the inhabitants of Ai to destruction. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as their plunder, according to the word of the Lord that he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. New Century Version. The men who were in ambush also came out of the city to help with the fight. So the men of Ai were caught between the armies of Israel. None of the enemy escaped. The Israelites fought until not one of the men of Ai were left alive, except the king of Ai, and they brought him to Joshua. During the fight, the army of Israel chased the men of Ai into the fields and desert and killed all of them. Then they went back to Ai and killed everyone there. All of the people of Ai died that day, 12,000 men and women. Joshua had held his spear towards Ai as a sign to destroy the city, and did not draw it back until all the people of Ai were destroyed. The people of Israel kept for themselves the animals and the other things the people of Ai had owned, as the Lord had commanded Joshua to do. Then Joshua burned the city of Ai and made it a pile of ruins, and it is still like that today. Okay. So here we have the destruction of a city and all of its inhabitants. One interesting thing I want to kind of point out here is when this city was burnt, it was left as a heap of ruins. And yes, God wanted that city or that land to be purified for Israel to live in. But I also think hearing that this city stayed like that, in other words, no one moved there to rebuild the city, I think it stayed like that on purpose. I think it was a reminder to Israel of what God had done for them to that point. Now, I could be very wrong on that. That's just my thoughts for this right now. The other thing, there is a chance we'll get to this later. Every person of that city was killed except for the king. The king was brought to Joshua. I don't know if we're going to get to what happens to that king later or not, but to me, that does not qualify as obeying God's command 100%. Because everyone was supposed to be killed. Not one person was supposed to be left alive. Well, like I say, the king was left alive. So, as we read, we might find out what happens. It's been a long time since I've read Joshua, so I honestly don't know at this point. Now, Again, this is going to be a common question throughout the book of Joshua that I'm going to ask. Israel, for the most part, followed God's command on this city, killing everyone, burning the city down, and even taking the plunder that God said they could take. How devoted are we to God today? Are we so devoted that we will do 100% of what God asks us to do? Or do we like to ride the fence on a few things? And you know what? I know God says I need to go over here and do this, but this just looks a lot more fun over here. How devoted are we to God? I hope you find encouragement in this, and I hope you have a wonderful, God-centered day. Bye.